Hey, what is going on? This is Ricardo with Within the Trenches Media, and I am here with my good friend Karen Marquez, ENP, Chief Public Safety Brand Officer with RapidSOS, and this is going to be a special edition, an April Media Partner Spotlight for National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week 2022. Karen, how's it going?
Happy Friday, Ricardo. Super excited to be with you, especially this week.
Yes. Yeah. So what is this week? What has been going on? I mean, there's been stuff all over social media and everything. It has been really cool to see a lot of these pictures, videos, so many things going on. So for those who are watching and listening that might not know what this week is all about, enlighten us, hook us up.
Sure, National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week was started back in 1981.
I love how you're doing this.
I did that just for you. But no,
Oh,
honestly,
I
let's
love
talk
it.
about where it started. In 1981 by Patricia Anderson from Contra Costa County Sheriff's Office in California. So back when I was a dispatcher, Ricardo, maybe back when you were a dispatcher, I didn't even know this was a thing. I thought it maybe started in the 2000 somethings,
Mhm.
but it's amazing to see the history and how far it goes back. But now in 2022, we're seeing agencies being recognized and celebrated and having week-long amazing events from, dress up and honor this or that, and just having such a good time celebrating the heroic work that 911 professionals do each and every day. So I've had a blast watching social media this week.
Yeah, and you're right. There's been a lot of themed days. A few friends of mine have sent me some pictures and stuff, and what they're wearing and everything. And I'm trying to remember some of the ones that were out there, but they were really good. It's always awesome to see the theme ones, especially the superhero ones. Yeah, everyone's dressed up and everything, but also different decades, and people are dressed up in different decades, and that is hilarious.
There was Hollywood, and then I saw one, I think it was last night, I saved it on my phone, it was White Lies. So, all the telecommunicators were wearing T-shirts and, like, white T-shirts, and they wrote on them different white lies, and and it's about their agency. I'll try to read one here real quick. It says, "I like PD radio better." White lie. I can understand officer, and then they put their name on the radio. A white lie. So, like, super, super fun things. Other folks that were celebrating a retirement of one of their chiefs, so they all dressed up like old people.
Oh man, that is hilarious.
Yeah.
That is amazing though. And when just like you said in the beginning, I didn't know that this even existed. So, just starting out 2001 in a small police department back in Central Florida, I spent 3.5 years there, and this was never mentioned as far as I can remember. None of it was ever mentioned. It wasn't until I ended up moving back home to Southwest Michigan and working at Allegan County Central Dispatch, that when this week ended up coming up, I started seeing a bunch of food everywhere, and like these gifts and stuff that were coming in. And I remember we had it was a plastic baggie, and it was like the proclamation was in there, but then there were different things that were significant to dispatch. And so it was all for that. And I remember asking a coworker, I was like, what is this? And they said, well, it's for National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. And I said, what is that? Like, can you tell me? They're like, it's about us. It's honoring us the whole week, and people do this and that, and we do stuff here. And I had never heard about it. And yeah, it's awesome to see that there are so many people who are doing this.
No, it's great, and you're right. Like, in the early days, my first agency didn't know it was a thing. That was 97 to 99, and then at my other agency later, not only did we start celebrating it internally at our department and having folks from, police, fire, EMS bring us treats, then the mayor doing the proclamation, which was awesome, and being able to take telecommunicators to stand in front of city and city council and be recognized at that level. Then our county actually would hold a telecommunicators banquet, and we would do awards for the agencies. So telecommunicator of the year, team of the year. And it was awesome because we would put videos together to tell the story of that award. And so it was really powerful to see the amazing work that these folks were doing within their own agencies in your county. These are your friends, your coworkers. You may have heard the radio transmissions, you may have watched the news stories, and then you get to see these folks being honored for the work that they do. So it's awesome. I love this week. And hopefully, we remember to celebrate each other every day and not just during National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week.
Right. Yes, exactly. And we've got Cynthia popping in here in the comments saying it has grown over the years. I think we didn't start celebrating until 2014.
Yeah,
Yeah.
many, for
Yeah.
sure. And there's some that still don't get celebrated today.
Mhm.
And so, what are we seeing, in the industry? What are agencies doing to help identify those folks and do something? So, here in Colorado, there were actually two centers that I know of, at least, that had adopted an agency and may have been in another state, may have been in that same state. So, Adams County 911 here in Colorado, JEFCOM 911, they adopted other agencies and they paid it forward. So,
That's awesome.
other folks, sometimes we have to celebrate ourselves and start something. You create that path. And so if nobody's celebrating you, have a party for yourself. Order
Right.
donuts, order a cake. Let's celebrate.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. And you're right. There are a lot of folks out there that do take it upon themselves, whether it be supervisors, trainers, or those right on the front line and everything. And they end up doing stuff for everyone, and it's awesome to see that, because that just that's that camaraderie and everything that's going around, and you start sharing, and that the morale goes up a bit, and just you get that recognition and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's really nice. And so Julie is jumping in here and she says, when I started in 1998, my agency had telecommunicator week. Bam. So there it is. They
Yes,
had been doing
Julie.
stuff already. That is awesome. She
Yeah.
also says, love that idea of adopting another center. And yeah, I noticed that as well on social media, that a lot of
Yeah.
people were doing that. And I thought that was awesome. It was really cool that people were jumping in.
I think it's super powerful, that pay it forward mentality and doing things for others. When you think of others before self, man, you just get so much in return and watching the joy in someone else because they're getting celebrated. That's everything.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. And so as industry partners, I see a lot of them are sharing stuff as well.
Yes.
And for all of you at SOS, what are some of the things that you all have been doing?
So, aside from sending treats to some agencies, of course, we have 5,200 agencies. We can't do everyone, but we have been sending treats out to some folks across the country, sending out handwritten thank yous, reaching out to folks and just wishing them well. However, every person in our company, or at least majority of them, have created little videos that we've been sharing on social this week just to appreciate all of the work that telecommunicators do around the year. And I have enjoyed so much watching these videos, heartfelt messages. There's impact stories from our folks, our own RapidSOS team members who have had to call 911 and sharing that impact that the telecommunicator had in their saves. We have got animals and babies and all this fun stuff, but really just sharing from our heart here at RapidSOS how much you all mean to us. So some of those videos been playing on LinkedIn and Facebook. So if you've not seen them, I encourage you to go to the Rapid SOS page. They're also on mine, and maybe Ricardo, you might have a little sample.
Yes, I do. As Cynthia jumps in here again saying your videos were amazing, very heartfelt. Bam, there you go.
Oh, thank you,
Very
Cynthia.
nice. And
Yes.
and you are correct. I do have one here that I want to play really quick. So I need to make an adjustment here really quick. And there it goes. And we will get this one started.
Thank you so much for all you do every day and every night to serve your communities. Thank you for trusting Rapid SOS to help you serve them better. We appreciate you.
We are so grateful for the sacrifices you make today and every day. Thank you for your heroism.
I want to extend my sincere gratitude to all the public safety professionals out there, you 911 specialists that answer those calls day in and day out, dispatch those critical resources for your communities.
Wishing you a very happy National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. I am grateful for all you do every day to keep us safe. It's an honor to work in support of you and your colleagues.
Today and every day, we are very thankful for the life saving work that you do. Our mission at Rapid SOS is to better support you, and we are very, very grateful for the trust you've put in our team.
Happy Telecommunicator Week, and thank you for your everyday service. It is truly appreciated.
So that, Ricardo, is There we go, is like one of many videos that we have been sharing with these heartfelt messages. And I'll tell you, we have such an amazing team of people, some that come from public safety and some that don't, but we are so aligned in our mission to help empower telecommunicators to save lives and always thinking about that front end person that is dealing with that crisis. We know that not every 911 call is an emergency, but we want to be there to support you through every single call. And even when your agency has an emergency, we're here for you too. So just absolutely love this industry so much.
That is awesome. And here I have on the screen from Erica saying, "Thank you for helping us make our job easier." That is awesome. Very, very
Thank you,
cool.
Erica. You rock.
So a lot of good things been happening this week, but we also have a couple guests with us here today, and I'm going to bring them up. We're going to learn more about them, and how this week has been for them, but also their stories, their dispatch stories as well, and then some other stories relating to the amazing technology that you all have out there. So let's start here with Mel. I'm going to bring her up, and she is a 911 specialist.
From
Hello.
Iowa State. Woohoo!
Thank you.
All right. Yes. Welcome. And very happy to have you here.
Thanks
And
for having me.
yeah, this is going to be fun. We're going to learn more about you as well as our next guest that I'm going to bring on screen here too. And then after that, we'll get to, kind of some intros and everything from the both of you. So the next guest here is also a 911 specialist, and his name is Patrick.
Greetings.
Hello. welcome. So this is gonna be fun. We had a call recently kind of talking about it, some of the stuff that we were going to be do here, and we were doing some testing and stuff beforehand, and now we're here live and we're going to share your stories. And I want to start with you, Mel.
Okay.
How did you get into public safety to begin with?
To be honest, I was in my undergrad. I was getting my bachelor's degree in psychology and criminal justice, and I had an internship at the public defender's office. And it was basically, we have all these different cases that come in where we have to find ways to defend these people in court. And I realized very quickly that that was just not my thing. It's like, I got to get out of here. And I had a friend that worked in the 911 center and was like, well, I mean, if you want to get into criminal justice and working with victims, because that's kind of what I was going for. She's like, well, we take calls all day where victims call in. Do you want to give this a try? And I was like, sure, why not? And here I am 7 years later, still doing it. So that's kind of how I got into it. It was really just by chance. I'd heard of these sorts of things before, and I've watched movies and stuff, but I didn't know like where these people were, or like exactly what the job entailed.
Well, what was it like for you in the beginning then? Because, 7 years in and all, obviously, it got in your blood, like a lot of us.
Yes.
It gets in the blood and you're there and you're wanting to help and everything. So what was that like for you in the beginning then?
I think really at the beginning, it was super overwhelming. I work for a pretty big agency, so I didn't realize like what it all entails and the different moving parts that go into handling someone's emergency. So I think at the beginning, it was really cool. I felt like every single day I was like in a Halle Berry movie or something, but it's also overwhelming because it's not like watching a Halle Berry movie. I'm the person that has to try and help these people. And so that was the overwhelming part, but it was also, of course, entertaining too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's 911. Anything can happen, and I've always described 911 as getting into a car, slamming the gas and letting go of the steering wheel, because it can be that intense.
Yeah.
It can be pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is.
So for Patrick, how about you? How did you get started in public safety?
Well, way back at the dawn of time, I started out actually as a law enforcement explorer.
Mm-hmm.
And then right out of high school, I got to work for my local police department I'm at now, as we called them cadets then. Now they're public service employees. Then I went to college, and in college I was working for the university police department. And out of college, I went into law enforcement in a few places. I ended up moving up through the ranks in law enforcement. And then one year I decided to get out of law enforcement and went a couple years working on my own, actually as a private investigator. And then that wasn't very reliable. So Our local department that I originally started with was looking for some new dispatcher / telecommunicators, and I decided the paycheck was more consistent and the benefits were better than what I was giving myself. So I went back into that, and I really have had a new appreciation, because all those years on the other side of the mic, I don't think I ever totally appreciated what they did on this side of the mic. And I've been at this now for about 8 years or 9 years this year. So
Wow. So, I mean, that says a lot, coming in and having a more appreciation for it is what everyone does there in 911 and such. So, I guess for you as well, what was that like for you in the beginning? Because you see everything that they do now. And I can only imagine you sitting there and experiencing this now for yourself and thinking just that, like, whoa, I didn't think it was like
yeah,
this.
it's yeah, it is, and the technology, of course, is even much greater than when I was on the other side of the mic. And we do so many different things there in our center. Um, and I think, like I was telling you in the pre-show, we're one of, I think, only 3 agencies in our whole state that's emergency medical dispatcher certified. So that's makes it pretty interesting. There's like the capital city and one of a really large agency that's twice as big as us, and then us for the whole rest of the state. So so it's interesting, and definitely the technology gets to be more and more of a challenge every year. So, but at this point, I tell people I'm too young to retire and too old to start over. So,
But you're in a profession though that, just it keeps evolving and
yes,
things continue to happen, and there's no shortage of folks who are calling for help. So you are definitely secured, and with all the amazing technology that's coming in and everything, and we'll get to some of these stories here shortly, but it just makes for the job to be that much easier than when we all first started
oh
out.
yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Because this stuff wasn't around, and it was really hard and heartbreaking as well to have people call in and not know where they're at, right?
Right.
Right.
So going back to Mel here, do you remember your first call or any of your earlier calls? Oh.
You know, I don't know if I remember the very first one. I do
Mhm.
remember the first shooting I took though,
Oh,
for sure. And I think that
yeah.
for me, that one, I think the reason why I remember it is because I realized the lack of control that dispatchers and call takers have on the phone. I had a guy on the phone that got shot, and I was like, where's the suspect at and where they go? And I'm trying to get descriptions of the suspect. Did they leave on foot or in a car? And I'm trying to help as I can see the police cars moving on the map. And he's not giving me anything. He's like, I don't know. I'm just shot. That's all I need. I don't need cops. I just need an ambulance. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay. And then the second that police got on scene, he was like, that way, he went that way. And his name is this. And he left in a black Escalade. And I was like, holy cow. And my trainer was like, oh, get used to that. And it showed me that like we only have so much control over the phone. And of course, as you go through your dispatching career, you learn different techniques that help you with that control over the phone, and you can get better at it. But still, like you are only have so much control over the phone, and maybe Patrick can speak on it more. But and I think that that's really hard for responders like police and fire to realize that the only tool that we have is our voice, and that makes things really difficult.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's that using your voice as the most, that powerful element
Yeah.
to take control of the call, especially when there's a bunch of people,
Yeah.
there, and there's just screaming going on in the background, and you have to decipher what is going on,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and it can be crazy.
Well,
Yes.
one thing I haven't mastered that the ladies I work with master is that the mom voice. And I can't do
Yeah.
the mom voice. The best that comes out of me is I sound like some DJ at a radio station. I'm like, please listen to me now. I have questions for you.
Which
It
is
doesn't
always
quite
better
have that
than
authority of the mom voice, but
Oh,
ma'am, ma'am.
oh, the mammers. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ma'am or sir, but yeah, no, that's funny because you can also throw the weather in there. If you as we're talking about you sounding like, a radio announcer and stuff. That's
Mhm.
so funny. Karen, what about you? Let's go to you here, on your dispatching career and such. We go back, we jump in our DeLorean and we go back for a little bit. Do you remember your first call or any of your earlier calls?
No, but I will tell you that it's probably because I was a nervous wreck. Because my first day on the job, when I walked into the center, and it was a one-man dispatch center, my supervisor gives me the chair, the hot seat, and she sits on the desk and she's like, "Okay, the phone's ringing, answer it." First call of the day, my first shift on the job, and she's like, "Answer the phone and say this." So, I don't remember that first call, I just remember how freaked out I was that I had to answer the phone on day 1 and, like, say something to somebody because they were, like, having an emergency. Then an officer transmits, and the radio's going off, and she goes, "Push that red button and talk to them." I have to talk on this thing? I had no idea. This is day 1. So, no, I will remember, like, my first robbery. So, Mel, you had your first shooting.
Yeah.
It was a bank robbery that had just occurred. I'm by myself, 3 weeks on the job, and I was out of
Wow.
training on my own. And, I had shared this on social the other day. I knew that it was a robbery, I think, but when I aired it to the metro agencies because the suspect was at large, I aired it as a burglary just occurred at the Vector Bank. And I had an officer that came in after the whole thing was, we caught the guy and everything. It was great. But afterwards, and he was like, just so you know, I'm like, oh my God, I am such an idiot.
Yeah.
But it really helped to kind of train me when you make that first mistake, right? And so I will never forget the difference between a robbery and a burglary because of that day, 3 weeks
Yeah.
into the job. But
Yeah.
also, I just appreciated the relationship with my officers to help me understand, what it was that they were dealing with out in the field and how can I be the best dispatcher I can be? How do I get the right information and air the right information at the right time for them?
Mhm.
Because, we had data given to us audibly from a caller, but if I'm not asking the right questions, I might not be providing the right information to that field responder. So,
Mhm.
those lessons I do learn, especially now, just reflecting on those early days of 911 and then how much information we now have at our fingertips to help inform calls. So,
It's something, right? When you go back and kind of reflect on some of those early calls or just how things were. And I I always think about just starting out in Central Florida. I mean, you think orange groves, all over the place, which there are. And in the city that I was working in, for whatever reason, it seemed as though people just they didn't want to pay their car payments. And I say that because when things went to heck there, it completely would be crazy because it was just me for 8 hours by myself in there. And when there were big fires, man, it felt like I wanted to call people in to try to help me out, but it was just me and I was doing it, which I'm glad, because then when I was working with the team, they knew that I could run with everybody who was there because I had done everything by myself for so long. Well, what would happen is someone would call in about a fire out in an orange grove that was close by, and it would get everybody to head out there. And shortly after the fire, they would say, "Oh, there's a vehicle out here. It was actually a vehicle fire. There's nobody in it, but it was a vehicle fire." And sure enough, a little bit later, someone would call in saying that their car was stolen, and that was their car. But there were people that were actually known for doing that.
Mhm.
they
Yeah.
would they would purchase a vehicle and then they were done with it, and that would happen. They would pay people to steal the vehicle, take it out to the grove, set it on fire, and then they would try to get insurance money. I'm
Mhm.
like, what?
Yeah.
Like, this happens?
Yeah.
Like, this is a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is crazy. Patrick, going to you, do you remember your first call or any early calls in your
Uh,
career?
yeah, as a dispatch, I don't remember the first one, but I remember, well, for me with the law enforcement background, the law enforcement calls seemed to come easy because I went into cop mode.
Hmm.
So that helped a lot. The medical calls were a little newer to me on what we had to do. And before we had Pro QA, we had a very rudimentary medical program. And I took a call, and I'm still in training. My trainer's sitting over my shoulder, but I was the one to do the live call. And it was an elderly person that called and said that, and I don't recall, this person was pretty elderly, and they said their son was on the floor unconscious, thought he'd had a heart attack. So they helped me launch into our old system to start CPR. And in the background, I hear another male come in, um, and he says, you know, what's going on? And you hear the old lady yell, and all of a sudden you hear, oh, and you hear this thud and crash. I said, ma'am, what's going on? And she says, oh, my son, I think's laying here not breathing, but my husband just saw him on the ground and he just passed out and had a heart attack himself. I had two victims laying side by side, and I was like, I don't know what to do now, but we just did the best we could and got through it.
Oh man.
That was my first unconscious or heart attack call, and still in training. And I was like, oh, this is fun.
That's a double whammy.
Yeah. Geez.
Yeah. And you're still here. So that
Yeah.
Real.
that's good. I mean, you've stuck with it. Those are some of the ones that when it happens, you know, the trainers or whatever will look at the person and be like, are you good? And they'll
Yeah.
say yes or no, or they might leave right after that. A good friend of mine that I actually grew up with, and we went to school together and stuff. She graduated a year before me, but years later we end up working together in dispatch in the county that we grew up in, and she was my supervisor. But when she first started out, and I believe she started when she was like 18 or 19, but when she first started out in training, the first major call she had was a triple homicide.
Oh,
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's something that they still talk about there in the center. And she's now the training coordinator there, and she's amazing. But I remember when I first started out, she told me that, and I'm just staring at her, and I was like, "So does that happen around here?" Like, because I didn't know what to think. You know, I had 3.5 years of experience already, but it was just the small police department. But now moving back over to Southwest Michigan and working in that county that I grew up in, I didn't know, like, is this like the kind of stuff that happens in the county now? So
right.
I didn't have anything like that, but you know, her telling me that it was good to have that experience so that she could tell me kind of how it was for her and how she dealt with it, you know, and many other things. So it was good to have, you know, that experience. And as hard as it is to say, to have an experience like that, because, you know, a triple homicide, that stuff sticks with you, you
Yeah.
know.
Right.
It does. I
mentioned,
would say at the same time, those are your best training moments.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
you mentioned I stayed with it and sticking with it.
Mhm.
I also have been a longtime member of our state's CISM debriefing team, and
Excellent.
I dealt with my own issues, you know, pretty well through the years. I loved going to the CISM, but I find now I go and I get kind of caught up because now I'm experiencing the stories from 2 or 3 angles, and it almost overwhelms me to hear them in a debriefing now. So
Yeah.
I've kind of had to back off those a little bit, just
Yeah.
because sometimes I start reliving my own issues too much when I go sit in those. But probably the most, it wasn't right when I started, but when you mentioned that, I did take a call. One of the smaller agencies we dispatch for, I took a call one night that a subject went over to check on his sister, found his sister had been murdered by her husband, and her husband then killed himself. And I realized before I sent the officers, the lady that had been murdered was one of our officers.
Oh,
And
man.
I knew before I sent the other officer there that he had to go over to that house, and that was kind of tough to do.
Yeah.
Hard.
Again, the ones that end up sticking with us, and especially when it's, you know, one of your own and everything, that's it's a hard thing. But I also applaud you though for being part of your you know, your CISM team and everything, because that is definitely a hard thing to do. But thank you for that service and doing that. I want to look in the audience here in the comments really quick. We've got there's not a name attached to it. It just says LinkedIn user, but it says, love this. I started dispatch in 1988. My kids grew up visiting me at dispatch. 2 became dispatchers. 1 now works for RapidSOS. I'm so proud of
I
him.
love that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
I'm
that is
gonna take a guess that might be maybe Sean. But I would love to hear who it is. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty awesome, and then saying hello to Kimberly, hello, hello, and then, Zach out of, Zionsville, Indiana, and then Natalie jumping in here from Georgia, so this is awesome. We've got people who are jumping in, and if you were on here already and didn't, say where you're at, roll call, please. Where are you at? And, again, please make sure to, throw in, some reactions there and share this broadcast on your feed, as well as your favorite dispatch page. So thank you all for joining us here for this special edition of the Media Partner Spotlight, because Rapid SOS is a media partner sponsor of Within the Trenches Media, and just love it. Thank you so much for everything that you guys do. So we're going to, oh, right there. Yes, it is. LinkedIn user.
excellent. We
You
love
were
our
right.
son. That's awesome. Yes,
That
and thank
is.
you for your service because really these telecommunicators that started before all of us, right? They
Mhm.
paved the path for us. And
Right.
so hopefully, I paved a little bit of a path for folks that are still in the centers today and that's what I'm really all of us here at Rapid SOS are trying to do is help create that future. And
Right.
so we're excited to be partnering with 911 centers all across really the US and even some globally. So,
That is
Ooh.
yeah.
that is excellent. We were talking a little bit about, first calls and all that stuff. One of the first medicals that I will never forget, um, was a gentleman who called in for his wife who wasn't breathing. Well, not just breathing, she was having trouble breathing is what it was. She was having trouble breathing. However, the husband is laughing during the time that he's telling me this, and I'm, nervous because I hear her in the background, and I'm in. I think I was still in training, and I had my certification and everything to do, emergency medical dispatch, and I'm going through my cards and flipping through. Well, what it was, and the reason he was laughing is because his wife had a trach, and what she would do is she would use a small wire brush to twist and clean it.
Oh.
I'm already
And
stressed out listening to
I
this.
know, right? Yeah, so and he's telling me this, but get this, this is how he's telling me. And he starts going, "Yeah, sir, I kept telling her, don't do that because one of these days it's gonna get stuck." And it did. It did. And he's just laughing. And I'm like, dude, like this is not like you should not be laughing right now. But
Like
in
we shouldn't. Okay.
Right, but we're over here also laughing.
yeah, but and so I can hear her and she's talking like she can, but you can tell that she's having a little bit of trouble. And she's kind of telling him like shut up. Like this is not cool. And he's like I kept telling her. So what happened was like the back of it broke off. So the wire brush was still in there. And then he goes, "Do you want me to get pliers to take it out?" And as soon as he said that, EMS says, "We're on scene and at the door." And I said, "Sir, go open the door.
Oh,
Go open the door. EMS is there." But that was the first medical that I remember working at Central Dispatch that will always stick with me. And it was because the husband is laughing and I kept telling him, "Sir, your wife is having an issue. Like this is not a good time to be laughing." And I'm trying to keep it together because you could tell that he didn't have any teeth. So him talking made it a little bit more funny, and that he was laughing, and she ended up being fine. They didn't transport her. They got it out and everything, but he just kept saying, "I kept telling her. I kept telling her." I was like, "Okay, I get it. You were right, okay?
yeah,
Like,
argue
let it
about
go."
this later.
Yes, yeah, let it go, man. Like, your wife is having issues right now, but yeah, that's one of the ones that I won't forget because it was a medical. Medicals can be scary,
Mhm.
but to have a gentleman call in and laughing about that, and his wife basically being like, "Shut up, like, stop laughing, this is not funny," and me telling him too that it's not funny, I was like, "Oh, is this what this is going to be like?
Yeah.
Well, when they describe things like that too, just like when you said the trach and the brush, and I'm like, oh, I just feel it in my throat. And so sometimes when
Yeah.
you're
Yes.
answering those calls and people are describing, you're just like, oh man, I could feel that. I could see it. And we start, right, creating this story in our head. And it's just
Right.
so hard to take that
Yeah.
call and to not be like completely grossing out on the inside.
Or listening to people vomit on the phone
Oh,
too. I've done that so many times, and it's
yes.
brutal.
Yeah.
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 Oh,
That
The worst.
Yes, that was actually something that I had talked to a couple dispatchers out of Texas when we were out there for the Galveston conference. They were talking about that, and one of them was like, I'm a how did they put it? I'm a sympathetic."
Sympathetic.
Yeah,
they start gagging.
yeah. They're like,
Yeah.
if I hear it, I would have to pass the phone off to somebody else, and I'm like, yeah, you're right, because sometimes, and I'll say this one thing, and we'll move on. But I remember taking a phone call once where I think it was a verbal only domestic that was going on. They were completely separated. One person was outside. The person I was talking to on the phone is inside, and officers were already almost there. But you keep them on the line just in case something happens, because anything can happen, right? And you have to be able to make sure to relay that information for scene safety and everything. And I'm talking to this person, and they said, "Can I put the phone down for just 1 second?" And I said, "Yeah, go ahead. Just put the phone down. But I want to make sure to hear everything just in case something else happens." They're like, "Oh, yeah, no, for sure." And then I hear the person going to the bathroom. And I thought, okay, you did what I told you.
You
I
asked.
did tell you to put the phone down so that I could hear everything. But that's not what I was expecting.
Yeah. I've had that before too.
But that and that's what makes this job fun as well and unique, because nothing is ever the same.
Yeah.
The incident type might be the same, but the situation
Completely different every
yeah,
time.
There's
completely
no
different
job
every time.
like this.
Yes.
Around.
I had a 911 hang up, and our agency, usually we try to either text them back or call them back just to make sure what's going on. And we were super, super busy. All my other coworkers were busy, busy, busy. So I called back, and I got this old guy on the line, and I just wanted to make sure he was okay and hang up because my coworkers needed help. And I got him, and I said, your number rang in here. And he says, "Oh yeah, ha ha ha." He says, "I dropped the phone getting out of bed." And I says, and I'm thinking, oh, it accidentally dialed somehow. And I said, okay. I said, well, I just want to make sure you're all right. And he says, yeah. He says, I just dropped the phone, He says, I sleep alone in my bed. And then somewhere, and he said, since my wife died, and I was just trying to be polite and get him off the phone. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. When did your wife die?" And he says, "Well, I don't know. I just found her on the couch." I mean, oh, you mean now? So everything went into a whole different mode.
Oh man. Yeah. Those are those calls where someone is talking to you just nonchalant, right? And then in the middle, they say something like that, and you immediately start thinking, you should have told me that first.
Yeah,
because-
I would have led with that.
Right, and then they
Wow.
don't wanna bother you, like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry I called."
Uh-huh.
Or they wanna call the non-emergency number instead. "I didn't mean to call 911."
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bless them.
Yeah.
Aw.
Oh man. Yeah, that's one that definitely will stick.
Right. Right.
I want to look in the comments here really quick. We've got a good friend Kimberly. Hello, how's it going? She says, after being in dispatch for 8.5 years with an agency who didn't have RapidSOS, I'm moving to a new agency who has RapidSOS. Any suggestions as a newbie for using RapidSOS? Karen.
Absolutely. So when you get logged in and go to RapidSOS portal, there's a little hamburger menu on the top right corner. So it's 3 lines. You're going to click on that, go to the training center, and you're going to dig into all of the different training that you have available. It is probably one of the easiest tools to use that you can utilize on your first call. Very intuitive, but first of all, get your account. Use it, go to training, and you're going to learn so many things about it. And any questions that you or your agency has, we have a fantastic training and engagement manager, Leslie Woodham, and you have an awesome team here at RapidSOS. We are all here for every agency to help serve and support. So you can reach out to any one of us at any time, but use it.
Nice.
Yes.
There you go, Kim.
My suggestion on using RapidSOS, I myself, if you're familiar with your area you dispatch personally, keep it on satellite mode, because if it's on just map mode, you see a dot, but when it's on satellite mode, you also see outbuildings and sheds and different things like that you don't see in just the map mode, and then that gives you an even better idea and a picture of where it's at.
I love that, Patrick. That's a great one.
Yeah, very nice.
One of my first rapid uses was a suicidal person calling. Wouldn't give us his address, but Rapid gave me an address, and I noticed the little tracking dots moving around. Put it on satellite mode, and I could tell he was hanging around a shed out back. Then I went to street mode and confirmed that. Told my officers I think he's in this shed out back instead of at the house address that it came back to. They went, and that's exactly where they found him, was in the shed.
Wow.
I love it because you're mentioning like some of my absolute favorite features that are so simple is just clicking that satellite view, dragging that little Google guy and dropping him right over that dot so you could see what is around and really try to understand what that caller is describing, right, Patrick?
I mean, like saying, if you're from the area, it really helps, because then if they're saying, oh, the big red house on the corner, and you've been by that big red house, you know where they're talking about too, you know.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why, but how many people don't seem to know directions anymore?
A lot.
They tell you, well, the guy went left and then he went left again. And I'm like, well, attention all cars, look for the vehicle going left.
Right. Caller advice, vehicle will be going left again, and continue. No, you're right, because even I've been out of dispatch almost 9 years now, and I still find myself giving directions to people the way I would do it in dispatch. Go west, by this or this, or give cross streets, and then they're just staring at me. Or if it's over the phone, it's just silence.
Yeah.
And then I'll hear, I have no idea what you just said. Like, what? Like, be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah. Yes. So then you have to be like, okay, go left at the Burger King.
Right. Yeah. Right. Using landmarks, or, when I'm talking to someone, whether it be the bank or, whatever it is that I'm calling for, I start doing phonetics and stuff, and they're like, oh, you know what? That is a lot better. Thank you for telling me that, because I thought you had said P, not D or B. And I'm like, oh, okay. But sometimes when I do stuff like that, I can tell that people are just looking at me like I'm being jerky or something, but it's not. It's just in me. Like it never goes away.
Yeah. I tell people to stand by all the time. I'm like, okay, stand by. Okay, what on the radio? I'm like, oh, sorry.
Stand by one.
Stand by.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I still tell my children to stand by.
Does it ever throw you off when a caller, we have a set phonetics here, and I'll say, is that like F like Frank? And they'll say, no, it's like Fred.
Oh yeah.
And it makes you have to think for a second. It's like, well, that's the same thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We had a trooper who would never say B boy. He always said B Boston. Every time. And he wasn't from there. That is just what he said. So we always knew when he would pop on. And when we had newer folks who would be on the radio, he would say, B Boston, and keep going, and they would turn and look. And I would say, it's B-boy. It's the same thing. It's Boston,
Still
starts
B.
with a B. So just go with it. It's fine. That's just what he says.
Oh my goodness.
You can always tell the ex-military too, because they use the military phonetics versus the civilian.
Foxtrot.
Yeah, Foxtrot, Lima, Papa, all of that good stuff. And then again, you have to, for a moment, wait, what? Oh yeah.
Yes. So here's my household. I come from the law enforcement phonetics, and I am married to a 28-year veteran. And so when we are trying to give each other phonetics, I have to stop and think about his, and then he's like, "Can't you just use mine?" No. So it's the fun story in the household. He's always got to be different.
That's hilarious. Like this right here. M. Michael.
Yep.
Do you ever tend to use 10 codes with civilians? We use 10 codes, and here where I'm at, 10-9 means repeat traffic.
Yeah.
And I forget, and I tell civilians that I'm talking to, and I don't catch them. So I 10-9, and they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, 10-9. I have to remember who I'm talking to.
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, I was asking you to repeat. Oh, why didn't you just say that? Well, because it's faster to say 10-9. I don't know. Oh, that's hilarious. I want to look in the comments here really quick because there was a story here that was shared, and I want to read it here. And it says, "My first call was on an admin line. This line continued, or no, couldn't be monitored. Is what it says. This line couldn't be monitored or muted, but the phones were ringing off the hook. So I answered. Of course, it was an active domestic. The female caller was describing the situation in which her husband threw a bucket of urine on her. They had no utilities at their home and was using the bucket. And this person was in shock when taking this call, and the trainer ends up turning to the person and says, "Welcome to dispatch." And these are some of the calls that that you end up getting, and it is just like that. And especially when you've been there for a while, you think, okay, it can't get much more crazy than this. And then it's like that meme that's like, "Hold my beer," and
And it
something
does.
even more something even more outrageous ends up happening, and you're just, whoa. Especially if there's a full moon. I mean, come on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're just asking for it then. Or if somebody uses the Q word, which if anybody is working right now in dispatch, I'm not going to say the word.
Nope.
So please don't hate me.
You use that word, we take a sack of potatoes and beat you with it. So.
Well, I'm not going to go visit you. I get destroyed by, it's like, what happened to Ricardo? Did you see him limping? Is he said the word and he got destroyed by some potatoes.
I always say that, sack of potatoes, and one day I came to work and opened my locker and there was a sack of potatoes in there. And unbeknownst to me, a dispatcher who had no idea that was my phrase had an extra sack of potatoes and just left them in my locker with no note. So I thought it was like The Godfather. I'm like, what message am I getting here? What did I do?
That's amazing.
Oh man, yeah. No horse head for you. It was the sack of potatoes. Yeah. That is funny. So,
I see
Bruce,
you have used the Q word. It will not happen again.
oh, that's amazing.
That's right.
There is a Q word that was used here in the comments, and our good buddy Bruce threw that in there as queen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why, thank you, Bruce. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Karen's over here like, yeah. The hair flip.
Yeah.
So Mel, how about you? How about some of as we're talking about some of the technology and everything, and we can also kind of reflect a little bit on the technology in the beginning compared to how it is now.
Yeah.
But as before we get to that, Mel, some of the some of the stories, some of the impact of this technology and stuff that you have have the privilege to be able to use RapidSOS.
Yeah, so one call earlier in my career in dispatching that I can think of was I had this guy on the phone and he was telling me that there was he was mumbling. It was kind of hard to understand him, but he was telling me that there was a body on the roof and that this guy's eyeball had popped out and he was strangled with an electrical cord. And I'm like on our phone screen, like trying to like retransmit a GPS on him, and a good one was not coming in. And I was like, okay, so someone got murdered and their body is like roasting on a roof somewhere. And this guy is just like, you can tell something's off. I think he had mentioned he had been drugged. I'm like, yeah, it sounds like you've been drugged. And I'm just trying to get a good GPS on this guy. And it like somewhere in the call, I had been on the phone for like 20 minutes trying to figure this out. A good GPS is not coming in. And then something just like changes and his voice is as clear as day. And he's like, hello. And I'm like, hi, who am I talking to? And he's like, oh man, I did it again, didn't I? And I was like, I don't know. What, did you kill someone again? I don't know. What did you do?
Right.
Yeah, right. And he's like, oh, man, I'm a sleepwalker. And sometimes I call 911. And I was like, excuse me? So he was sleepwalking the entire time, called 911, made up this crazy story. And I still didn't have a GPS on this guy. And now at this point, we're like 30 minutes into the call. Whereas like now we use, like I was telling Karen before this, we use RapidSOS on every single call. It's part of our policy for call takers now. And we have tons. I mean, like I said, I work in a really big area. And so we have tons of people call in domestics where they can't talk. And so we'll pull up RapidSOS, and I can't even tell you how many times we have someone that's like, I need help right now, but they keep it open line, thank goodness. and we pull up Rapid SOS and we can see like, oh, they're in a car. And I've had one specifically, I wasn't the call taker, but I was the dispatcher, and I pull it up. And so I'm telling officers, we have a female saying that she's stuck in the car with her boyfriend. She can't talk, but she's badly injured. And so we can see that she's moving and that she's probably in a car. And then all of a sudden the dot stops at a house. And so I was able to quickly tell the officers, right now it's stationary here. And they were able to find them there. And that's the technology that I didn't have when I first started. But now with Rapid SOS, it is insane the amount of things that we can do and how helpful it is on calls, especially like that.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've said it once and I'll say it again. It makes me jealous that I'm not in dispatch to be able to put this to use.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, and I work for the company, and every time I'm in a 911 center, I just get the chills every time I see that little dot pop up, and then the little red dots pop up, and I see that success that happens in the telecommunicator or the dispatcher. I love, love, love how you all utilize that tool to impact that call. There was another one that we had gotten, Ricardo. It was actually posted on social media from Culpeper PD, where an agency earlier this month received a 911 call. It was actually multiple hangups. And every time the dispatcher answered, the caller would just hang up. So finally, they were able to stay on the line, but they used Rapid SOS to find that location. And it turns out they were able to stop a sexual assault in progress.
Wow.
Because of that. Like, it's so powerful to hear these stories that are going on. And man, I wish I could have used it in the center, but I'm super happy to get to work with all these amazing people across the country to help utilize the tools.
New technology. We also were one of the first centers in the state that had text to 911. And we also can text back people that call our 911 center directly. And we get a lot of that when they don't want to talk. But as far as Rapid SOS, I got to tell you, one time, I don't always have the Rapid screen up till I need it because we got so many screens. But one time I had the screen up and I noticed a number popped up and it located, but we didn't get a call. Nothing rang in the center. So I called that number back, and sure enough, they needed help, but they hung up quickly, hoping that 911 would just let them know. Well, it didn't even ring in the center. I only seen it because I was watching the Rapid screen and saw a number popped up. So yeah, it's very, very good use, very good tool.
It's amazing when we hear these things happen, but also how agencies have found out that there has been a 911 outage, whether it's a particular carrier or an issue, a fiber cut or something like that, because they see these dots popping up on their Rapid SOS portal map and none of the calls are coming in. And so they're still able to utilize the tool to call somebody back and still help them in an emergency and be able to have this solution even as a backup sometimes and use it in those outage situations, the Nashville bombing, and you name it. So it's super exciting to hear those stories as well.
Another tip, I was telling you how I use the satellite view. Another time, something that people out there listening, if you have it, think about. We had an active shooting one day I was working that turned into be a homicide, and we had tons of 911 calls. And I saw on the Rapid screen all the calls, and I did a screen capture showing the GPS location of each caller. I pasted that into the officer's comments so that later, if they needed to remap that for court, they could show what angle every caller could see something from.
That's awesome.
So in case that was important for them, that's something we couldn't necessarily do in our old system. It might give us some of the coordinates, but you couldn't just screen capture it right away like that.
That is amazing. So there's a story in here in the comments that I want to read from our good friend Bruce. I love this dude. And he says, my favorite Rapid SOS story is not a save, but it remains my fave. Years ago, we were testing with Karen and really excited about the breadcrumbing. The exciting part is that Karen was standing at the door of my favorite muffin. So I knew she was buying us muffins. Now you know why it is my favorite.
Oh my gosh, that was such a fun day. Thank you for that one, Bruce. Yeah, I had them following me and I'm turning and they're like, yep, you're now going, eastbound on Arapahoe Road and you're taking a left here. Da, 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 da. And yeah, I was at my favorite muffin to buy them treats for doing that test. He busted me.
Yes. Oh, That
Yeah,
is
in the best way. That was
that's
great.
amazing. To kind of look back as we were talking before, and it has to be probably one of the best feelings to be able to have, this technology now, because years ago, if we look back to when we first started and where technology was at that time, I mean, how did you feel when you would take a call and you didn't know where someone was at? That phase one would not go into a phase two. The person has no idea where they are, and you're trying and trying and trying. And some of those calls, you end up losing them and you can't call them back because maybe you're just not able to, or anything like that. I know for me specifically, when people would call and the call would drop and I couldn't get a hold of them again, or anything like that would happen, that is the worst feeling in the world, because you're there to help people, right?
Mhm.
You're there to send out someone help, and when you can't, it's just the most helpless feeling.
Mhm.
So I guess just really quick, I mean, I kind of explained it there, but but only as me, as personally, Karen, was it similar for you? Back then?
Yes. It was awful. There are times I remember not having location information and somebody disconnecting, not answering their phone, trying to ping the phone because we knew that it was a bad situation and somebody's life was in danger, and spending hours using every database, water billing books, anything we could find to try to find a location. And there was one in particular that I still to this day do not know what happened to that person. And those just really, I think, set those wounds of, did I do enough? What else could I have done? I know that there's something else I could have done and do more. And what if that person lost their life and then kind of blaming yourself for that?
Mhm.
Mhm.
We now have tools to help telecommunicators know that they did enough, that they helped this person, and really that they provided that service to the community because they were using the tools at their fingertips.
Mhm.
And so I think that that really helps to kind of close those gaps of I don't know what happened, and blame and shame, and
Mhm.
holding on to those thoughts and memories of wondering whatever happened to those people, to I did good today. I helped somebody and I had this information and I feel great.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes that I wish I personally would have been able to have that, but now I do get that through these stories. And so I would say for any agency that is utilizing Rapid SOS technologies, we love to hear your saves, because not only does it help us really understand how you're utilizing the tool, but it also gives us that internal motivation to do more, to do better, to help you more. Our engineers, our legal team, our finance team, everyone here at Rapid SOS wants to hear that story so they know that they're helping you make an impact in your community. So please continue to share those, because they're just as impactful for us to really understand how you're serving 911 across your
Sure.
community.
Mhm.
Perfect. Now, as we go into the wrap up of this broadcast, I want to go to both Mel and Patrick. And Mel, we'll start with you. And I want to know, reflecting on your entire career thus far, what are some of the things that you're grateful for out of this profession?
I mean, I think in general, being in the 911 community has made me more grateful of like where I am in life. Like we take calls every day of all these terrible things that happen to people. And I always am like, oh, wow, it could be worse. And like I'll be going through something personal, but then I take a call from someone who walked in and just found like their son dead, or people whose babies have like these like severe medical issues that they were born with. And I think to myself all the time, like I have two boys, and how stressful, like I, even one of my sons when he was born had medical problems and they've subsided since then. But like how stressful that must be for that person that has to do. So basically in general, like it makes me so appreciative of like where I am in life, because it really could always be worse. And I think it makes me more empathetic with people on the phone, because I'm like, man, I tell people all the time that call in, like, I am so sorry, because I can't imagine some of the things that people go through. And so
Yeah.
that's the biggest takeaway for me, is just listening to all these things that happen to people. And I'm like, okay, so like we were talking yesterday, my hot water heater broke while I was on vacation. That sucks. But geez, it could be so much worse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Patrick?
Um, I think, like I was saying earlier, I've had a new appreciation for what it's like behind the mic. And one thing that I've kind of come to appreciate, and maybe it's a little bit of a vanity, and I'm sticking up for our career, but I kind of look at it now as like an hourglass, and the top with all the sands is all the people with problems, and real and perceived. And down below are the sands of where you disseminate that to law enforcement, medical, everything. But it all goes through that tiny little part in the middle, which is us. And it wouldn't go through if it wasn't for the very few of us. There may be dozens and dozens of firefighters and officers, but there's only 2 or 3 of us in dispatch that all has to filter through. So people should feel proud and happy that they are there to do such a vital work, what they do for their community.
Absolutely,
Wow.
Patrick. Feel
That's a
proud
good
of
way
the
to put
work.
it. Yeah.
Yes, feel proud of the work that you're doing. Ricardo, this year has been such a challenge for everyone. We have critical staffing in our 911 centers across the country. We need you, telecommunicator, more than ever to commit to your community to provide this service. So you are a critical link. Be proud of what you do. There are struggles. Yes, it could be much worse. Continue, press on, press forward because we need you now more than ever. That is my big pitch right
If
now to everyone.
if I could offer any advice to people out there, maybe you're new or old, one thing I did kind of held over from my law enforcement days. We used to keep a daily diary type thing. I still keep one in dispatch. So I jot down what shift I worked, little things like that. And I try to keep a diary of the interesting and humorous calls. That way, as I recall it, I don't dwell on the negative and the bad. I recall the good and the funny.
Yeah.
And it kind of helps me keep my morale up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Love it.
That is awesome. Well, thank you, all of you, for joining us here live for, again, this special edition, this April Media Partner Spotlight with RapidSOS, who is one of our media partner sponsors. And this was a National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week 2022 special. This was awesome. This was a lot of fun. Thank you all for joining us here, but especially Mel and Patrick for joining Karen and I for this episode and sharing your stories, but also sharing, the stories on RapidSOS technology and how that is gone as well. So thank you both.
Thank
for
you.
your
It's nice
service
to
as
meet
well.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you both.
Everyone, go get RapidSOS. It's a must.
Love you, Patrick. You're awesome.
You're hired.
Yeah.
No, I will kind of follow that up and just say thank you so much to every single agency for the trust that you put into RapidSOS. We really do try to work with purpose over pride, and your trust in us means the world. So let us know how we can even better serve you.
Perfect. And Mel and Patrick, we will be right back here with you in just one moment. And Karen,
yes,
as always, such a good time.
So much
Thank you.
fun.
This was good.
Yeah, it was great. Happy National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week to everyone. Continue to celebrate. You got a couple more days and celebrate every day. What the heck?
Yes, exactly. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on either open mic or the DRT or the flagship show Within the Trenches podcast, or just any questions in general or anything, please make sure to check us out. And that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches podcast. Any bonus material that you're looking for, you can check us out and support us. That is patreon.com/WTT podcast. And going back to Karen here, how can people find out more about RapidSOS, social media, and email, how to get a hold of you, all that good stuff?
Yes, you can find us at rapidsos.com. You can find us on LinkedIn and Facebook. I'm going to follow in suit, Ricardo.
That's awesome.
You can also connect with me on those social platforms and K Marquez at rapidsos.com. You can also reach our team at EEM or Edward Mary at rapidsos.com for any of your needs. We'll be sure to respond to you.
I love that you got the phonetics in there. Well done.
We got it. We talked about it. Got to
That's
throw
right.
it in.
We got to throw it in there. And then for the media partner spotlights, you can see this on Facebook, LinkedIn, Live, YouTube, as well as Twitter. And then for the flagship show, you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Once again, happy National Public Safety Communicators Week 2022. thank you for everything that you do is the most vital piece of public safety, and just be there for each other, support each other, and well done. We'll see
Yes.
you guys in the next one.
Take care of you.
Have a good one.